Hi, my name is Cheryl Rosado, a la Cuisine, and thank you for joining us today on Chips and Salsa. I'm really excited for today's guest, but before we can jump into him, I do need to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor is National Automotive Repair, and what does everyone need? You need an honest mechanic. So you got to jump over to National Automotive Repair. They're located right off the 17 here in Phoenix, and they are willing, ready, and able to help you. You just tell Jake that Cheryl sent you, and he will hook you up, get you all ready so you can go on your way. And so we really thank them for being sponsors of our show, and also Canaloo Air. It's wonderful to have an honest mechanic, but here in Phoenix, it's maybe even more wonderful to have an honest AC repairman, because you need that. And it's not full on summer yet, but it's still very, very warm. And so you want to right now take the time to get your AC, make sure it's all in line, get it all checked out. So if you do run into problems, you call Carlos at Canaloo Air. And again, you can tell them that Cheryl sent you, and they will make sure that you're all hooked up and everything's right so you can enjoy the summer. And what else do you need for the summer? You need to get your summer body on. And so if you're on Instagram, it's at AZ_injection_perfection. And she does body sculpting and lash extensions. So like I said, we still have some time until summer comes. You need to get a couple sessions in so you can get your perfect summer body on. And is that it? Oh, no. And then One Team, One Dream Foundation is our last sponsor. So thank you to our sponsors for letting us, supporting us so we can be here to talk to great people like my guest today, who is Mr. Bryan Blehm.
Well,
So,
thank you
Bryan,
for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
did you come to be on the show, or did you come to eat the chips and salsa? I
Oh,
want to
my
know the
God.
truth.
I love chips and salsa. I love just about everything Mexican.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that he was a Mexican food like aficionado there. So I was very excited to have him come and try the chips and salsa, because we do bring it to every show that we have in studio. We're not always on locations, but in studio we always have chips and salsa. And yet nobody ever eats it until after the show. So I was really excited for a guest that was like, oh, I'm not afraid to dive in
I'm going to eat
here.
it during the show. You're going to have to listen to my crunching.
It'll be like ASMR, like...
But it's my understanding that her daughter makes this salsa, and it is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Yes, my daughter makes it every week.
And her daughter didn't make enough because there's going to be none left for me to take home.
And that's the thing is, like, last week, I think I'm the only one who ate some. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to bring as much this week. So that's why I was like, I forgot we had Mr. Mexican food here.
Right.
So I'm so excited to have you on the show. If you're someone who is familiar with things going on here in Maricopa County, you know Mr. Bryan. Do you want me to call you Bryan? Blehm?
Bryan
Mr.
is
Blehm?
perfectly fine.
Okay. Bryan is an attorney here, and he has represented some of our absolute favorites, Carrie Lake. And who else have you represented? Maricopa County, right? The MCRC.
Maricopa County Republican Committee.
Yes.
Do a lot of work with We the People, AZ Alliance. And
Who we also thank for letting us be here today.
Right.
Thanks, Steve.
yeah, so we sue the government a lot because the government doesn't want people to know what it's up to, and so it's our job to sue them and make sure we can get the records.
Right. And I mean, if you're watching this show, you probably love someone who's suing the government and trying to force some transparency, get some accurate stuff going on, whether it's in elections, because I know you mentioned to me earlier, you do a lot of election law, which is not all what you've done here for like MCRC, but for Carrie Lake.
Yeah, and so, elections are the crux of the matter, right? They are where we, the people, come together and we decide who's going to govern us. That is our version in the United States of democracy. And whenever things happen that skew or some way change the outcome of those elections, then that's a significant problem, because then we have people running government that don't represent the will of the people. And so our version of democracy in the United States has been skewed, and we need to fix this, and we need to fix it badly. But it's not just a matter of some local politicians trying to rig a system. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah, unfortunately it is. It's a huge problem, and it's I know. I just watched the first Mission Impossible movie, and it's just when you said that, you reminded me of one of the characters. He says, "The mole's deep inside."
Oh,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And that's how it is. Like you can't. It's hard to try and and it's painful.
Well, I
Growing
gotta
pain
tell
is
you,
kind of a.
we the people, we had our first live podcast last night.
Oh, so you have your own podcast?
Yeah, we started last night, and the subject was the shadow government, right? Because we've had this shadow government in the United States for a very long time. Joe Biden was never president of the United States of America, and the prolific use of the auto pen.
All right, I would say Mr. Auto Pen himself.
I think proves that other people were governing and signing his signature. And so we've had this shadow government for a very long time. They really picked up steam after Trump won the first time in 2016. And then they burrowed in, and now they're on the run. And so a lot of this shadow government has now come to hide in the state of Arizona. And States United is sort of the front organization for this shadow government. And what I mean by shadow government is there are all of these people connected both to the Democratic Party and to the national security apparatus, right? So they have all of those ties. States United is here in Arizona. It is buried in the governor's office. It was buried with her when she was Secretary of State, running elections, and it's buried in the Maricopa County Recorder's office. And so States United is sort of this government nobody elected that is sort of governing from the shadows, right?
Yeah, I know. What do you think about the pardons that were signed with the auto pen? Do you think that's going to be something that will be overturned? Do you think they're even going to try to overturn those?
No, I think I saw a story about somebody admitting theirs was not valid. But
Wow.
when the President of the United States of America issues a pardon, and he's not even in the country.
Right, because that's what I heard.
Right, and a bunch of these pardons are signed. In essence, these are the people that were governing behind using Joe Biden as a puppet. Right, they're pulling the strings of government, doing whatever the hell they want. And now that Trump is about to become president, they're running. They're running scared, and so they issue themselves pardons. There's no such thing as a pardon yourself if you're below the President of the United States of America. I think probably just about every act allegedly signed by Joe Biden, whether it be a law, an executive order, or a pardon, personally, I think legally they would be null and void because they were not done by the president's hand, right?
Right.
They were done by some flunky. Nobody knows who this flunky is that's actually doing all of this. And so I would say they're null and void. That would be my hope.
Me too.
I would hope a court would find that.
I think so too. I just think I was just wondering though right now, do you think that it was helpful that Joe Biden was on such a mental decline for the shadow government, or do you think that they would have had as much pull as they did no matter what, and it was sort of detrimental because he couldn't run again? Obviously they were kind of forced to push him aside after his debate and stuff like that. So do you think that it was helpful to them or not helpful to them?
No, I think it spoiled their plans. Right. Now, Joe Biden, when they first made him president of the United States of America, but Joe Biden did not win the 2020 election. Maricopa County, run back. I still want the loading dock video from 2020, right? The day after the election when you accepted, 3 days after the election, when you accepted 20 to 30 ballots that were then added to the vote totals. And so, I think it hindered them. I think the reason they originally chose Joe Biden as their puppet was his ties to China. Right. And we talked a little bit about this last night when we did our podcast. If you look at a lot of these big multinational law firms that support the Democratic Party, they're all pushing this, Trump equals Russia collusion nonsense, right?
Right.
And
They've been pushing it a while.
Right, and we can go back. We can go back to prior to 2016 when they began pushing this narrative. But most of these law firms and most of the people pushing this Trump-Russia collusion narrative are actually in collusion with China, right? A lot of these major multinational law firms have big offices in China, and so there are these China ties on the left that go overlooked by most of the media because most of the media is handled. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The world we live in today is you ever see the movie Wag the Dog?
No, but I know that was the Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah,
war
I think
thing, right.
I think it was Dustin Hoffman, but you got a presidential election and they need a war, so they
Right.
call in a Hollywood producer and he makes a war, and that's exactly what's happening with Ukraine right now. As the the national security state in the United States, in league with their allies, the liberal Democrats, want a continuation of this Cold War that we had all throughout the 20th century with Russia, because what's at stake, right? Let's say you're Halliburton, and we no longer have a
Yeah.
Cold War, and you're Congresswoman Cheney, and you want to get rid of Trump because Trump's bad for Halliburton's business.
Right.
And so these people have this vested interest to keep this war going. The war, I call it...
It's a brave new world.
The 20th century was a century of war, right? And it was all started with the 16th Amendment and the Federal Reserve Act. And so I think we need to get rid of both of those and go back to being a constitutional republic.
That would be fantastic. Yes,
I'm gonna have a chip.
let's do that. Okay, so
Make it a long question because I'm gonna be chewing this chip.
he's gonna be chomping for a minute. So I know the one thing I didn't bring napkins. My bad. Okay, mental note. I'll remember that for next time.
It's just as good off the fingers as it is on the chip.
Good to know.
Now,
But okay, what did you know? What were you saying? Oh, so I want to ask you just quickly, who is on your podcast? Who else who are you chatting with for that?
oh, well, last night was Shelby Bush, myself, and Kim. She's one of our investigators. She was, dressed in prison garb from an undisclosed location. And I just
Intriguing.
like that. No, she was wearing it looked like an orange jumpsuit, right? So I just like to have fun with her. But she's one of our investigators. She does absolutely phenomenal work. If you ask her to deep dive something, she deep dives it. And so she's been instrumental in We the People and myself gathering information about the national security state and what it does here in the state of Arizona. Right? It's very big, it's very active, and it impacts every level of our government, including Stephen Richer. Right? Stephen Richer, was a fraud. He was straight up 100% CISA. That was his primary job. And CISA's primary goal was to censor conservatives and to eliminate pro-Trump and MAGA speech. And that's what Stephen Richer set about to do in Maricopa County. And he was running Maricopa County's elections, right? And Maricopa County accounts for 60% of the votes in the state of Arizona. So you have an impact in that one county. You have a huge impact statewide, not to mention the fact that Stephen Richer also was the chairman of some organization of all of the county recorders. So,
Oh, really?
all the stuff he was doing on behalf of CISA and States United, which was the big subject of our podcast last night, this shadow government and what it was doing in the state of Arizona and Maricopa County, we would push all of that stuff out to all of the other counties. I would strongly urge the state legislature to get off its butt and start investigating some of these things because we can't get access to non-governmental organization records, right? And so they're hiding, their acts through private organizations, right? And the legislature would have more impact there. And they can also ban these types of organizations from having an impact in our elections to the extent that they do. So,
Well, we definitely need somebody to buck up, get some courage, and look into this then.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So any
Yeah.
legislators that are
yeah.
willing, if you need some support, you got it from us.
Well, we also need a governor, right?
Yes.
Because, Governor Hobbs, God, did they pick her because she's just an idiot or because she'll just do whatever they want because she likes the lifestyle?
I think
I don't know.
I think it's the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it seems.
Yeah, she probably likes the lifestyle. I'm sure she does. But she, it's like we were talking last night. We were talking smack about her, right?
I'm shocked.
Yeah, and so she goes to answer a question. Somebody asks her a question she's not prepped for, so she runs in the building and hides in the bathroom and calls security. Right? I mean, that's what kind of governor they put into power in the state.
And
of
that's
Arizona.
what she did when R.C. Maxwell was trying to ask her a question at the burger place, right? She just ran into the bathroom, spilled her drink, didn't clean it up.
Right.
As someone who worked fast food as a kid.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, just let the peasants do it, right?
Right, because that's what we're there for, I guess.
Right. Well, every king needs a peasant, or every queen needs a peasant, right?
Yeah, you need someone to rule, and it does though make her seem, like I said, more accustomed to the lifestyle. If you can't answer questions and you run away and that kind of thing,
right?
So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see because the state legislature has now opened an investigation into fake Governor Hobbs and her friends, quote unquote, getting lucrative deals, right, and so all of this, insider trading and whatnot that's been taking place, and of course. The AG, I can never.
I was just saying, Chris Mays is definitely going to help investigate that, right?
Yeah, that's her name. Chris Mays is actually, I think, making inroads to run for governor, and so I told somebody
Katie won't run again.
I told somebody a long time ago when Chris Mays first opened this investigation. I said, "I'll bet she hangs it over Katie Hobbs's head."
Well, I heard that there's no love lost between the two of them. Is that right? That they're
I mean,
they don't like each other.
Katie Hobbs seems kind of affable, I guess, but Mays, is that her name?
Yeah, Chris Mays.
She's just an angry, bitter woman.
Yeah, I see.
I mean, they're
her
miles
posts
apart.
on X. She's always just viciously going after Trump and stuff like that, and vicious for no reason.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't even.
Right, and that's what I mean. She's a very angry, very bitter woman, And at least the governor Hobbs doesn't have that sort of, like she was born into animus, like your AG was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can you imagine her as governor of the state of Arizona? Right.
No, I think that would be worse than what we have now then.
Oh, it'd be 100%.
So
100%
that's something I don't even want to think about.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she'd have MAGA people out digging trenches so that she could line them up and shoot them into the trench.
That's so terrible.
No, that's what's she doing? She's using the power of criminal law to prosecute MAGA in an effort to destroy MAGA in the state of Arizona, right?
Yeah.
In an effort to control politics at the very local level, right? That's what Cochise County is about, right? When Mojave County wanted to do hand counts, right? She and Mark Elias sent them letters saying, "Well, we will prosecute you to the full extent of the law," right? And so, if you're an elected official at the county level, you're a member of the board of supervisors. Do you want to deal with a 2-year criminal trial to prove your innocence, and all that entails. It entails you spending your life savings, your retirement, on a criminal defense lawyer to prove your innocence. And so that whenever somebody makes those criminal allegations, and they're seen doing it in other arenas against MAGA for similar things, then these people make a cost-benefit analysis. Do I do this and risk losing everything I have and fighting for 2 years?
Right. The strain that puts me, on a person, and then by extension their relationships, so their friends and their family.
Right.
I truly think that people don't understand like the psychological part of lawfare. They think huge. Like, oh, it's inconvenient, oh, it's expensive, and yes, it is those things. But it's the psychological part of it.
Yeah. It is 100% stress.
It definitely is. Being adjacent to something like that, and I couldn't even like go downtown and like, because seeing the court building was like, it made me sick inside. Yeah. Because it was just so much that you go through, and I think that people vastly, I could have I could have withstand that. I don't know why they cracked, because it's a truly horrible thing. That's why people crack. Yeah. And the people who perpetrate this, they know that. And they are purposely, they want to put as much pressure and use it to the full extent that they can. I mean, if you're someone with a job or you own your own business, then either you're out money, or you're using up all your sick time and all your vacation time on your stupid court dates, on your status, what do they call status conference or whatever, all this stuff, and it's truly, I mean, I know that life is not fair. I know that, but it's so unfair. It's so wrong. It's so unethical to do things like that.
It's so unfair when it's motivated by your hatred and your animus, for a group of people and their politics. I mean, and Stephen Richer was very much the same way. He loved to go to court and portray, we the people, myself and the people I work with, as being affiliated or being violent extremists, right? And we're nothing but. I mean, we're anything but. We, what do? We do things lawfully. We ask the recorder's office for records, and when they say, well, no, we talk to them about it, and we say, well, we think this is why you need to give us the records. And, if ultimately we can't come to a resolution of the issue, we do what you're supposed to do in the U.S., system of jurisprudence. We file a complaint with the Superior Court, a special action complaint, telling the court these are public records, they won't give them up, and we want them. Right? And then we resolve it that way, and that's what we do. There's no violence associated with that at all, but Stephen Richer made it his career to try to defame MAGA and MAGA candidates as much as humanly possible.
Right, because he had his anti-MAGA pack, right?
Oh, he is. Well, we learned by getting his calendar that very soon after becoming the recorder, he starts having meetings with the leadership of States United, a very anti-Trump, a very anti-MAGA, a very pro-Hillary Clinton, very national security state-oriented pro-Democratic Party. He was having meetings with, who was the woman who ran the Democratic Party in 2016? Donna Brazile. He was meeting with Donna Brazile. What the hell does Donna Brazile have anything to do with elections in Maricopa County?
Recorder.
Right, but she was part of this left-wing liberal group that was running elections. And so, we've worked very hard to get records, and they've worked very hard to portray us as violent. And, we're not. We do things peaceably, but... now we know, they did this whole violence scheme. We wanted to know who, is verifying signatures, right, in Maricopa County. When you get the ballot affidavit envelope, they hire people to sit there and verify signature.
Yes. I went and observed in signature verification.
They were very adamant that we not learn who's doing signature verification. And We the People's gonna have a podcast coming out specifically about signature verification. And so
I know a PC who worked in it.
Yeah. We know now that States United played a huge role in our elections to the extent that they were briefing the Maricopa County Elections Department every 2 weeks. States United, right? This non-governmental organization of rich left-wing national security attorney types who absolutely hate Donald Trump, running our elections your elections in the state of Arizona, right? That's what they were hiding from the people of the state of Arizona. And then they have the gall to come out and say, oh yeah, we have free and fair elections, right? And then they call themselves bipartisan. And I guess, you want to call yourself a Republican, they call themselves a Democrat, but they're the same people.
Yeah.
And I think I talked to you a little bit about it before the show. It's, Hillary Clinton was no different than John McCain. Right. They may have differed $10 billion when battling fiercely over the passage of a budget.
Yes.
Right? But $10 billion. They both supported this multi-trillion-dollar USAID that was going to wage war around the world, overthrow governments, and make the world generally a worse place for most people to live, right? And so
with their fingers in things it shouldn't have been. I saw, was it like in Australia, I think, where they were like, oh, their colleges, because the USAID is going to be cut off, like the college isn't going to survive.
Right.
And I was like, how is that much of our money?
Right.
Like, send it to an American university.
Right.
Like, let some college kids go for
well,
free.
That's what people from Australia, Canada, Europe, Western Europe, you all don't really understand how much USAID money, how many hardworking U.S. taxpayers spent all their money electing the politicians that our national security agency wanted, right? We not only muddle in countries like Ukraine or Guatemala or El Salvador or Chile or Vietnam or Afghanistan, we meddle in the Western European democratic countries, and we support the election, not we, I say, but this cabal of national security states, Central Intelligence Agency, State Department, that use USAID as a tool to sort of shape the world in the image it wants to make it, right? And so those European leaders don't like Donald Trump because he's going to cut off their gravy boat.
Right.
Right. And and the same thing's been happening here. And so, in today's analogy, I use you guys as Senator Mark Kelly with Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, right? Mm-hmm. That's the new John McCain and the new Hillary Clinton, two wings of this same bird that support this continued waste, fraud, and abuse of, if you're a hardworking person out here in the United States, you go to work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week. If you're on salary so they can pump you up to 60 or 80 hours a week, right? You ought to be mad as hell that these people have created a system whereby they take your money from you before you even get paid, right? Hoping you don't notice.
Right.
And then they send it out to muck around the world. Mm-hmm. Right, and that should infuriate you because that's wealth you could use to feed your kids, to go to better schools, to buy more clothes, to do whatever you want.
Right, to go up to Alaska and see the Aurora Borealis.
To live like I do, to drive.
That's my dream. Someday I'm going to do that. Not
yeah.
drive. I mean, I wouldn't mind driving around in the pickup truck, but I'm going to go up to Alaska and see the Aurora Borealis. That's my.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yes, and. Have you seen it? Where else have you seen it from? You said.
Oh, I've seen it from Kansas, from northern Arizona, from southern Arizona. So the past year, this last year of this solar cycle, has been absolutely phenomenal all over the United States. And so I've seen it from everywhere, southern Arizona, all the way up to Alaska, just shy of the Arctic
Do you have
Circle.
pictures of it?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
print pictures?
Yeah.
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 So I don't know if you know, but Bryan is a photographer. I know I saw you had like a book, right? Or something, like a portfolio maybe? I don't know what it's called.
I have portfolios.
And there's some truly gorgeous, amazing pictures. And I see it's because you're always outside, always all over. That's why you have so many opportunities to take great pictures.
Yeah, I was just in southern Utah and northern Arizona. My kids and I went out to this really remote place on the Grand Canyon where and my niece, and we camped for the weekend. And the aurora was actually out this weekend. Friday wasn't a whole lot to speak of. A lot of the colors in the sky. But then Saturday, when it was far more active, it was just cloudy, overcast storms had rolled through. But it was still a beautiful trip, absolutely beautiful. So get to spend time with God.
Yes. I think sometimes my daughter, she's a teenager and she can get down, or I, feel a little sad, and I will tell her, I think we need to go outside. I said, we need to see the things that God created, not just, watch a nature special on TV or be in. I said, we need to go outside and we need to see the sun, and we need to see plants and animals and all the things that God created for us to enjoy, just to feel closer to God. So I think that's why I want to see the aurora borealis so much, is because I think to see what He's made for me to enjoy, just because He loves me, for me to enjoy something beautiful.
And I tell people that. To me, the closest analogy I can get to what the aurora borealis is it's God giving the earth an orgasm, and it is just the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, and I have seen a lot of beautiful things in my travels around the world. Sorry about that, but it's. And by that I mean it's like God is bringing all this energy to earth, for a purpose, and to be able to see that energy, interact with the earth and the atmosphere and our world, out in nature is absolutely phenomenal. It's incredible. But there are actually two phenomena. The aurora borealis is different than what's it called? Where it makes a big ring in the atmosphere. Now I forgot what it's called. But the aurora actually interacts with the poles on the Earth, and the other one, the SAR arc. It's called a SAR arc. And,
does that need to go on my bucket list too? Then?
Well, I mean. We had a huge SAR arc when I was down here this winter that was here. And I actually photographed it. I've got a photograph that's 180 degrees.
Wow.
From east to west. So Phoenix would be to my right, and then you've got Pleiades, to my left, and then Pleiades would be to my right, which was, at that time of year, rises in the east. And so it's just this huge, pink, purple arch that is in the atmosphere as opposed to on the earth. And it was quite phenomenal because the aurora was out that night as well. It was a very strong night. And so you could see the aurora dancing under it.
Wow.
And so if you go to my YouTube channel at Blehm Law AZ, I do a lot of different videos. I was
going to say, that sounds like a real legal video.
Yeah, and so I put my episodes of What the Fuck's Up on there. That's that little show I do on Twitter, 10 to 17 minutes, something like that, each little episode. And, really the way I got the name was, it's like, people don't know what's going on. What is going on with our world, right? And one day I was sitting there and I thought, I turned on my camera and I said, I just thought, what the fuck's up, right? What is going on? We have all this conflict taking place between what we're told and what is actually happening, right? And that's what the national security state and people like Stephen Richer worked very hard to shape what we thought, right? And another thing we're going to talk about in our next podcast, We the People, is Stephen Richer's expenditure of large sums of Maricopa County taxpayer dollars on what I call propaganda, right, to tell people about their elections and how they work. Well, I don't want to know how they work. I don't want a tour of your stupid facility. I want your documents after the fact, right, which he won't give up. He would never give up. And so, but I have those on there. And then I have adventure. I do a lot of adventure travel, right? Just a lot of adventure travel. So the last video I posted there is a trip that from this weekend where I'm driving to the rim of the Grand Canyon, and you know, it's very remote. It's like 35 miles off the highway, and
Nice.
and nobody there at all. But you're literally right standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon. And so I've got a lot of Jeep videos. If you like to watch bear eat salmon, a lot of
I
those
do.
videos from Alaska. And then I've got rebel art photos. When I'm out doing photography, I do a lot of long exposure photography. And that doesn't mean I just click the shutter and let it stay open for hundreds of hours, because then it gets all washed out, right? And so I'll take generally 10 to 13 second shots. I'll let my camera run for hours, and so you can see the sky, right? And I've got a video on there I made in Kansas. It was actually just, oh my God, talk about sleeping with God that night. Right. On my left, I had the most incredible Milky Way just standing erect over a lake. It was absolutely beautiful. And to my right, the aurora erupts. And this is in Kansas. The aurora borealis erupts. At the same time, there's a meteor shower taking place.
Wow.
So I've got a video of that part that's up on my
YouTube.
On my YouTube channel at Blehm Law AZ. And so, you know, a lot of art, a lot of nature, adventure, and if you just want to sit around and watch glasses made of ice melting, I even have one of those.
He's got everything. Thank you so much for stopping to chat with me today, Bryan.
You're welcome.
I was just really excited we could make this happen, because I ran into him recently at an event, and we had a good talk, and I was telling him how much I enjoy your X account, that I follow him on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and I really enjoy it. In case you can't tell, he's a little brash, a little blunt, and it's exciting. It's really cool to see, like, he'll be out there, you know, out remote in the wilderness nature, and he totally knows what's going on in politics on Twitter right now, and he's chatting about it. And so what's your Twitter?
At Blehm Law AZ.
Oh, okay. So it's the same.
And so, my email is Bryan at Blehm Law AZ. And on Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube, it's at Blehm Law AZ.
So give him a follow on Twitter. Give me a follow on Twitter at Rosado Republican, and you can get to see all his very interesting thoughts and his unique perspective, and some common sense and bluntness, and it's really great. So thanks everyone for joining us here today, and we'll see you soon.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for Politics and Chips and Salsa today. Bye.